Hello, my name is John Schnurrenberger, and I'm an instructor at the IBEW Local 113 Training Center. That's in beautiful Colorado Springs, Colorado. And I teach knots, primarily because I volunteered for it, and also because I'm probably one of the more knowledgeable people in the local when it comes to knots. And this isn't because I'm some whiz or anything, it just simply from my background, I was in the military and attended a few classes where knots were very, very important. I was military mountaineer for 8 years, and I've used knots off and on in the trade, about 40 years in the trade. I was on a mountain team for 8 years, something like that. And I've climbed recreationally for 35 years or better. Now, I kind of lose track on some of that. But enough about me. Let's go over the reference material so you know I'm not just pulling it out of my hat. First off, we have the rigging, hoisting, and signaling practices from NECA. This manual has all the ones that are in the curriculum, and has a good section in there. I also have Mountaineering Freedom of the Hills. This is a civilian manual for rock climbers and mountaineers, and this, very good section on knots. Primarily that's what I'm looking for, and really in the electrical trade that's all we care about. The mountaineering we're not going to really get into. Then again, Military Mountaineering Manual TC 90-6-1, and this has a lot of other things other than just knots, but it has a great section in knots. And it will include a couple of the knots that I've included in the curriculum for our people, which I think are very useful knots, and you'll see those. Next, I have the Vermont Army National Guard Military Mountaineering Manuals, winter and summer, and this big section on knots, a lot of other things other than just knots. And this one here is, however, a little more practical than the regular Army manual in that it doesn't show how to stand at attention and salute on the side of a mountain or on the side of a cliff. But so much about that. Those are the reference materials, just so you know I'm not making a lot of this up. And let's talk about a few other things. And first off, let's talk about safety. Safety is very important. When I'm climbing and I meet somebody new, I'll say, yeah, I'll belay you. And you can trust me. I've only dropped 3 people. I've been doing this for 4 years, so maybe I'm coming up on another person. But I'm usually I am joking about it. I've never, knock on wood, had anyone seriously injured, and no one had ever been injured because of a faulty knot of mine. So let's talk about safety. Let's talk about it in general at first. First off, if you don't know how to tie a knot, tell the person. They probably don't know how to tie it also, and so they won't be terribly surprised. Also, something we used to say in the Army, one oops wipes out 1,000 attaboys. Don't do that. If you don't know how to do it, say so. Be done with that. You're going to need to have a basic knowledge of physics. And I don't mean, calculations or anything, but I mean, what happens if I do this? Levers, balance, direction of pull, things like that, direction of swing. If I lift something up, what will that cause this to do? It's just common sense, but you need to have a basic knowledge of this. Doesn't need to be, oh, this will lift 43.8 pounds or something like that. You need to have just a down and dirty knowledge of physics, and that's just general physics, levers, and that sort of thing. You don't want to get yourself in a position where you're having to go, and this will date me. Beam me up, Scotty, because you got yourself in a fix. Think about what you're doing before you do it. ask yourself what could go wrong, and then try to take steps to avoid those things going wrong. Along with that, saying by Will Rogers, good judgment comes from experience. A lot of that comes from bad judgment. Try not to be that one with the bad judgment. Try to learn from others' mistakes and their good ideas, and try to understand why it was a good idea and why the other one was not. And I told the guys I work with, a rattlesnake you can see or the rattlesnake you can hear is nowhere near as dangerous as the one you cannot. Be aware of what's going on around you, what will happen, and be aware of it. And you can do dangerous things, but be cognizant that what you're doing is a little bit dangerous and you've taken steps to avoid those things. Before you begin, and this, I'm going to get back to my time in the military, we always did a talk through, walk through, crawl, walk, run before we ever did anything. We talk about what we're going to do, we describe it so that everybody we're with knows what's going to happen, or at least what we expect is going to happen. And then we'll kind of walk through it a little bit, a little dance sort of, and then we'll try to go ahead and do it and take advice. Other people may see things you don't see. Don't take offense to that if somebody sees something and wants to bring up something. Plan for problems. If you're moving an object from point A to B, walk that route from point A to B, looking for what you can trip on, what might be a problem. Make sure the ceiling height will accommodate what you're doing. These are all things I've seen happen, and you can avoid problems if you think it through a little bit. And this doesn't have to be a real involved thing, just something that you do real quick, and that is pretty much it for general safety. So let's talk about ropes a little bit. All ropes, or all knots, weaken ropes to varying degrees, and I'll try to go over that in each of the classes on the various knots, so you have an idea of which one is a stronger knot or what have you. An improperly tied knot, or a knot that should have been backed up which was not, can come undone on you. Be aware of that. Tie it correctly. If you don't know how to tie a knot, say so and go, hey, I can't remember this. Does anybody remember it? And if you tie a knot, ask someone to look at it. Look at it and go, yeah, I'm sure you got the right knot. And by the same token, if somebody else ties a knot, look at his knot, and don't just do a cursory look, but actually look at it and go over the checkpoints. And I'll try to do that in the classes. I'll go, these are the checkpoints to know that you have the correct knot. And don't take offense if someone wants to look at your knot. And by the same token, tell them not to take offense. It's better he can have someone else to blame because the knot didn't, he said it was good. But that's pretty much it. Practice the knots. If you don't practice them, you're not going to remember how to tie them. It's just, I don't. I forget them and I have to review them myself. And you're going to find out you have a core number of knots that you know how to tie. And you'll stick with those and try to have one applicable for different situations. And you stick with them. Do them, practice them once a week, once a month, one knot a week. And you'll retain that. It also would be a good thing to do during safety meetings. Let's do a knot. And then that way everybody has got a little bit of a refresher on it, because you will forget. And so, knot safety, or rope safety. Many things destroy ropes. Most ropes, like this one here, this is a kern mantle rope, which you have an outer sheath with an inner core of other single ropes. And this rope can develop problems when you're inspecting a rope, and this is something you probably won't have time to do. Run it through your hands, feeling for soft spots on it or something that seems out of place. It could be cut from the inside out and you didn't even see it. That's one of the nice things about a laid rope, which is a twisted rope. And there's so much of it that's out there that you can see, that you'll see when one is worn badly. If you don't have time, and you probably won't have a rope that's well taken care of, this is just one of the hazards we have in our trade. You want to avoid acids, you want to avoid oils, you want to avoid water, and you want to avoid sharp edges, especially under tension. A rope under tension will cut much easier than a rope that is not under tension. And so for that reason, if you can find you've got a sharp edge, like you're going over here, what you will do is get a piece of carpet or something to cushion that edge and make it a little bit safer. Ask yourself, if something breaks, where will it break? What will break? What will happen if it does? If you're hoisting 500 MCM up 40 feet into the air and your rope breaks, what is going to happen? And try to get people so they're not directly underneath it and unable to get away from it. So again, avoid acids, avoid water. I said we're not going to be able to do that, and we're going to put up that rope wet. As I said, our ropes are not well taken care of. So bearing that in mind, go, okay, if this breaks, what is going to happen and what will we do about it? It's one of the hazards you have in the electrical trade. You're not going to have the time to properly take care of a rope. So much for the safety. And so now we want to cover terms. We have a rope, we have a working end or a running end, and a standing end. Think of it, if you prefer to use the term running end or working end, I think everyone will understand this is the end you work with. The standing end is the end of the excess rope that you're not using. Next term we're going to use is a bite. Bite is nothing more than a bend in the rope, and the running end comes back toward the standing part. It doesn't cross. That would be something different. So next, from the camera's point of view, this is an overhand loop. From my point of view, this is an underhand loop. It is all from your perspective. From the camera's point of view, this is an underhand loop. The running end is underneath the standing end. And that is the determining factor on that. And it is from your point of view. From my point of view, that would be an overhand loop. And that is important. I'll say tie an overhand loop. If you tie an underhand, the knot probably will not come out correctly. And then the next term is a turn. So a turn is very simple. It is a rope wrapped around an object 360 degrees. The running end exits as if it were one rope, keeping 360 degree contact with your anchor, and exits in the same direction. The next term we have is a round turn. And this is nothing more than the running end going around another 180 degrees. So that the running end is going back toward the standing end. And that is a round turn. You see that has two wraps, whereas the turn has one. And this will be important in some of my discussions on the tying of the knots. And I will use these terms, and if you tie it wrong, if you don't do it right, you'll have a lot of fun trying to get the knot. So that is it for terms, very basic, but they're not normal terms that you use normally in everyday language. So try to remember them, and hopefully you get something out of the knots that we're going to cover